maybe I become part cobot, like a cyborg.
You could have both cobot, like 2 cobot arms.
I do have the
Josh
implant.
with 6-axis robot arms.
And you can just like pop one off and put a torque wrench on it or a torch on it. Like,
Sign me up for that.
Exactly.
Cool.
But what if he is the Terminator?
Yeah.
This is
slowly
my eyes are
becoming.
glowing red. You can't see it.
Yeah,
but they are.
slowly becoming the cobot. In order to understand it, you have to become the cobot.
Become the cobot.
Yes. It's going in a very strange direction.
Today's episode is brought to you by the FMA Annual Meeting. The industry's largest networking event heads to Las Vegas February 28th
through March 2nd.
It's your opportunity to connect with executives and leaders in metal fabrication, steel production and distribution, service centers, and so much more. Hear from experts on trending industry topics and the insights you need to drive decisions. And remember, what happens in Vegas takes your business further. Register today for the 2023 FMA Annual Meeting at fmamfg.org.
What was that again?
That's fmamfg.org.
Hello. Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. Before we jump into this episode with Josh Welton, Mr. Brown Dog Welding, which is not his handle, but he's Brown Dog Welding, but I call him Mr. And Nate Bowman, the Weld scientist.
Yeah, these two guys have like pro wrestling names for their professional monikers. The Weld scientist and the welder assassin.
And mutual respect and pretty knowledgeable individuals, so I think you'll enjoy the conversation. But as we were kind of preparing for this, we looked on Josh Welton's Instagram feed, and he's got some personal, I guess, what would they call
like small
welding
scale
sculptures.
Welding sculpture.
Yeah, Bender the
Statues.
robot from Futurama.
Yeah.
Which arguably I think has supplanted The Simpsons as my favorite Matt Groening outlet. But Bender's probably one of my favorite characters of all time.
Bender's pretty good.
What do you like about the Bender?
When he frequently calls humans meat bags. Like he's just a degenerate robot who has a soft spot. I don't know. It's better when robots are like that. It makes me laugh. Humans, it just makes me sad when they display such behaviors.
See, and people are worried about AI.
Well, I guess this makes me feel better. He's my bridge to like that Skynet future that's inevitable. So I think this is. Are you a Futurama fan? Anybody else?
I don't have an opinion. I've seen episodes. I don't have an opinion about it.
I get sucked in.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So what's your favorite cartoon though?
My favorite cartoon, I am a huge Scooby-Doo fan. Original.
Where are you?
The Scooby-Doo.
Mysteries. Was the original? Was that what it was called?
Scooby-Doo Mysteries, that's right. Casey Kasem voiced
wow, that's
Shaggy.
Cool. Yeah.
And maybe Scooby.
I'm not sure.
The original Hanna-Barbera version.
So let's hear your Scooby. Or no, your Shaggy impression.
Let's see. Say, Fred.
Well, that's it.
But your Velma's so much better. Why don't you do that one?
Ready? Say, Fred.
Jinky Scoob.
Jinkies. It was amazing how that dog could be fooled with those delicious snacks, but then they came out with the real cereal.
This is way before my time.
They actually had a cereal. I'm not sure I remember that either.
Yeah.
Scooby snacks?
Short-lived. Obviously, they weren't very
Were they
good.
called Scooby snacks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you buy into the all the historical research that's been done on Scooby-Doo since the series originally aired? Did you buy into the theory that those Scooby snacks might have had some hallucinogenic properties to them?
Well,
and why would you give them to a dog?
And well, you notice that
maybe what they saw was not really ghosts.
Are we allowed to say hallucinogenics? Hallucinogenics.
If we're talking about,
I can't even say it.
I think so.
If we're talking about giving it to a dog,
I
sure.
think so. Well, I think the fact that Shaggy also would get a couple every now and then, he'd like intercept
That's
as they
what I'm
were
thinking.
throwing them to Scooby.
It made it for a lighter show, I think, much more adventurous.
Exactly.
How do you feel about the live action Scooby-Doo movies that came out like years later with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze
Linda
Jr.?
Cardellini, man.
I don't.
Yeah,
she
as
was Velma.
Velma.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I didn't see them, but
No,
I wasn't a
neither did
huge fan. I liked the original, but it was a
some
nice
people are like
try.
that. Can't let go of the original.
We were talking about the Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah.
I'm that way with.
Yeah.
like the OG early '90s Ninja
man.
Turtles.
Yeah.
Gotta try the new cartoons.
No.
So if you're so down with Scooby-Doo, were you down with the guest episodes?
Oh yeah, I love
What was that?
them.
I think it was called Scooby-Doo All-Stars.
All Stars, yeah, like we said, yeah, Don Knotts and the Globetrotters.
Batman and Robin was a special one for me.
Oh,
that was
wow.
yeah,
Fan of
that was a
Bat.
good one.
If you need a crime solved, that's who you want to call.
Was there ever like a weird crossover episode with like a different cartoon show?
There might have been. Yeah,
Oh.
Hanna-Barbera did
Yeah,
that every
the
now and then.
Laugh Olympics.
Yeah, that was the big one. There was Olympic year. It had to be 76, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
I think that's when it
So
busted
Hanna-Barbera
out.
decides, you know what? Instead of coming up with plots, we'll just bring all these cartoons
Yeah.
together and have them participate in like
The really rotten
Olympic events.
There were like 3 teams of mixed characters.
Scooby-Doo team was dominant
Yeah.
for the entire season.
You had Grape Ape, and a bunch of.
I think Yogi was the leader of the green team, and
I
then all the
believe
villains
so.
were on the yellow
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
Well, if we're going to draw on like a younger generation of
Snaggletooth
fabricators, this
was-
conversation is it.
Would you? This means you want to talk about Ninja Turtles? Is
Yeah.
that what it is?
Let's go.
Right.
What about our cartoons?
Yeah, okay, Michelangelo. At least we know the names. So.
Go ahead and rattle them off.
Yeah.
Well, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo, and
You forgot the easiest one.
Michelangelo. I
Michelangelo.
thought in my head I said it,
That
but
was
I didn't say it out
Raphael.
loud.
Shout
Raphael
out.
would I was about to say he's an editor on our Welder magazine.
Yeah. There's our.
There's the Raphael
Ding,
drop.
there's-
Yes,
Yeah.
we're trying to do that
Who,
for.
bringing the conversation full circle, just did a welding training trip to
Yes.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Yes,
to see the Weltons?
Raphael is a journalist by trade, not a welder, so he thought he'd get some hands-on experience
Yeah.
with our own Josh Weldon.
Yeah.
So he was up there this weekend. I think I didn't have a chance to talk to him, but I think it went well. I know he got promoted a little bit on Josh Weldon's social media.
Yes. Yep.
Some good knowledge will be dropped on him then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh is a knowledgeable guy, and I think that is very much evident in this discussion.
Well, yeah. I
Nate
mean,
Bowman.
anytime he and Nate Bowman get together, those conversations are always pretty interesting.
And believe it or not, no discussion of cartoons.
No. So I'm glad we could fill that void
Although
here.
Josh is a big Scooby-Doo fan, maybe?
I'm guessing he probably is.
Oh yeah, we're
Yes.
gonna drop that rumor, right?
Let's drop it. Consider it dropped.
Yeah. Even though he did these really cool Bender
Yeah.
little sculptures.
No,
But-
it's Futuramas for the adults in the room. We'll let you enjoy the
Conversation.
Futurama's high art. So anyway, enjoy this conversation with Josh Welton and Nate Bowman. The Fabricator Podcast is presented by Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs. As the foundation of the Fabricators Manufacturers Association, NBT is helping the next generation discover their future across the country in manufacturing through hands-on camps and scholarship programs. You can invest in tomorrow's workforce by visiting nutsandboltsfoundation.org. One more time, nutsandbolts.org.
Foundation.org.
Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast, live from FABTECH in Atlanta, Georgia, 2022. And when I say live, we think of Eddie Vedder.
I don't mind stealing bread from the mouth of decadence.
Nicely played. We don't think of Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, but that's another story. Anyway, joined by Nate Bowman.
What's happening, everybody?
How you doing? You might know him as the Weld Scientist. Also, Josh Welton, our friend from thefabricator.com. We're probably more famously known for Brown Dog Welding.
That's me.
Check him out. Check both of these gentlemen out. They know a whole lot more about welding than I do. But I know most of the worst islands in the stream, so we all have our talents. So, Nate, what brings you to FABTECH this year?
I come every year with Central Welding to see all the latest and greatest technology and everything that the industry has to offer. It's like a great place to network and do things like this. This is literally the reason I'm here.
Yeah, and your background, what's your role with Central Welding?
So I'm the director of welding optimization and education. I came up with that title myself. It looks great on the business card, and it
is
really
impressive.
sums up what I do.
Yeah.
I help our customers optimize their welding processes. So the approach that I take is, rather than, I don't do any sales, I'm not tied to sales in any way, but I assist our salespeople in finding the right solutions for our customers, whether it's developing welding procedures, helping them select the right welding equipment, handling just welding related issues that they might have, And then the education side, we're going to start putting on classes for high school and community college welding instructors completely free of charge for Central Welding customers in partnership with my other company, Weld Labs, starting next year. So we're actually doing 5 events next year for different teachers around the region. Again, free of charge for them so that they can have it's kind of a similar event to a FABTECH where they can come out and try new technology and then network with other people that are kind of in the same headspace as them.
Those educational or those educators, they're at community college level?
Yeah, community college, high school, and there's like a trade school or something like that. I know we have a Job Corps out there that has a welding program. The instructor there, he definitely want to be a part of that. So it's really just a way for people to get together and network. And welding instructors really have a hard time traveling across the country, get time off, get their school to cover the cost of training and things. So if you're a Central customer, we just offer it to you for no charge because you buy all your stuff. So we will host it at a school in a different area and invite everybody in, and 20, 30 people per area, and kind of network them together, and maybe have some people from industry come in, weld out some real parts, and just help them be successful with the equipment and the conditions that they have to work with.
Yeah. So I want to jump in real quick, and Josh, I think you had some experience with this at the show today, but we were talking about collaborative robots before we went live, and you made some interesting comments, Nate, about the dynamic of working with those, and maybe you can get into that, and Josh, maybe you can follow up with your own kind of take on it.
So Nate is who told me about these months ago. He was like texting me about them, and he's hyped about it. And I still did, I'm like, what are these? And he would send me links and stuff, and I'm like, all right, whatever. And then just now, actually, I came from Miller's booth, and they gave me a pretty good demonstration of a cobot, and might actually even be getting one to mess around with. And I know, Nate, you got one from Lincoln.
Yeah, surprise.
So go ahead, you're
so
excited.
He knows about these things.
So a little backstory on the cobots and stuff. I really first saw them about 8 to 10 months ago in LA. I took a procedure development course, and I got introduced to Cooper, the Lincoln cobot. And even 8 months ago, I was kind of hesitant. But I'm like, hey, this is really cool, but I don't necessarily want to learn how to program robotics. That's like a very steep learning curve for me. And as a welder, I enjoy the welding part, being under the hood, and I don't necessarily want a machine welding out stuff. But there's some things that I really just don't want to weld. You don't want to weld 5,000 parts out, like even as somebody who really enjoys welding, like once you get to 250 or 500 parts, you're like, okay. But if you're doing runs of parts that are that many, having a cobot that you can program to weld out these parts for you, it's just like having another tool in your toolbox. It's like saying, yeah, I'm going to use my file because that's what I'm comfortable with. I don't really want to learn about one of those fancy grinders.
I literally work with people who do that will still use a file to get down sharp edges as opposed to anything that's
plugs into the wall or has electricity that flows through it.
Yeah.
But it's just another tool in the toolbox. So I'm trying to the whole goal of me having one is so I can learn it. I want to feel comfortable with it. Cobots are not going to go away. They're here to stay. And if I can get in on the technology as it comes out and master the technology as it comes out and stay advancing with that technology, it puts me in a much better place in the industry. And I really love talking about new technology and new machines and that kind of stuff, and cobots are just another welding tool in the toolbox.
Literally, you explained how literally it was kind of just almost point, program, and then go.
It's imagine a coworker that you like that's extremely skilled at welding, but has no idea what they're doing. You got to just give them direction.
Yeah.
And I kind of have that. Josh, I'm sure you can appreciate that appreciation for machines.
Yep.
Like a car kind of has a personality, and I definitely feel the same way about all my vehicles. Like they're all different. They all have their own quirks and just like their own kind of aura. And the cobot has definitely got that same. It's like a robot. You want to kind of be friends with it, and if you treat it that way and you care for it and you kind of guide it into doing what it needs to do, it's going to give you great results. But if you treat it like something that you don't like and you're not nice to it, it's going to bite you.
It's like Jarvis from Iron Man.
Yeah.
The first Iron Man when he's got the robot. That's kind of a cobot in a way.
Yeah.
Jarvis did lead to Ultron, but
This is true.
we won't go there.
This is probably not going down a good path, and we're all going to die by the hand of
I think
robotic overlords.
The
but-
Terminator's
That's why
probably
you
the
gotta,
best documentary I've ever
join
seen.
them, man. You know, like you just got
If you can't beat them, join them.
join them. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
We bow to you, cobot.
Yeah. Me and Cooper are gonna be hanging out.
That was my favorite Friday night sitcom, hanging out with Mr. Cobot. Whatever. So we were mentioning about getting a new type of person into welding, perhaps.
Yeah.
With this type of tool. Maybe you can expound on that a little
Yeah.
bit.
So I for Central Welding, I visit a lot of schools, and I went to a school down in Southern Oregon, and it's a like a pre-engineering type class. So
Right.
they have robotics and CNC programming and a plasma table and that kind of stuff. And it's also kind of combined with welding. So
Yeah.
like half the kids are like the really quiet, nerdy kids that are like, can I just go program the robot in the corner?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to do the welding part? But if you rolled a cobot in there,
Yeah.
and you're like, wait a second, this thing is kind of familiar, and I can program it, and it'll also weld. So you're
Right.
like combining like robotic programming with
Yeah.
melting things with electricity. Like I feel like in a kid that's comfortable with screens and computers and programming and that kind of stuff is going to just eat this stuff up.
They seem to
So-
be super intuitive too. That's part of the selling point.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, you and I say it's super intuitive. Like, we're not that old, but technology's still a struggle. Like,
for sure.
For even for me that, with a new iPhone and new technology all the time, it's still, you get into a new car and you're like, how do I pair my phone with why does the thing not hook up, But you get somebody who's 15 or 16 and they're like, it's like this.
I still can't
Dummy.
Snapchat, so
Yeah, I don't have Snapchat.
Is that really a verb?
if it wasn't, it is now.
Oh, there you go. Do you get that same sense? Maybe there's a new opportunity to bring people who may not have their experience with welding or be used to working with their hands. It's a side door into the trades.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see it's probably a good way to learn too, because as you set this machine up to do these welds, and then you just watch it do the welds, and you're like, okay, well, that weld looks good. I could probably do that. But if you're doing say you're doing like 10 parts, 15 parts, it's probably not worth it to break it out. But if you're doing 50 parts, like that repetition, from a health standpoint too, like there's a lot of stuff that, I've done in my life that have probably been to my detriment as far as my physical well-being. And if you're doing like a weird joint 250 times, all of a sudden you've got this machine to do it. I've softened my stance a bit the last few years on what machines can, where I think their place is in the industry. And the thing is you're not, technically you're probably taking some jobs, but you're not taking away as many as you think, because you still have to have people to operate them. And we've been fearing automation for 130 years. People thought when Henry Ford and the assembly line came that was it for automotive workers. So I think it's just like, it's happening, it's here, we've got to learn it, we've got to roll with it, and maybe even influence it in a certain way that is better for our people, for the guys on the ground and the girls on the ground.
Yeah. Something being as intuitive as collaborative robotics, do you think that actually, if you flip the script and maybe welders might say like, hey, I can do this in addition to maybe laying down that bead?
Yeah, and that's really the ideal situation.
Right.
Just if you're a skilled welder, and let's say the shielding gas is off or something like that, or a setting got bumped or changed or something like that, as soon as that arc light's off, you would notice. You would notice that, hey, this is something's wrong here. You can hit the E-stop. Rather than make 36 inches of weld that's Swiss cheese, you can make 3.
Yeah.
But that's, it takes a skilled welder. It takes somebody who's been doing it long enough to, as soon as that thing strikes an arc, you're like, this is not right.
Yep.
Right.
Or being able to diagnose a lot of the any of the programming issues, understanding where to weld things, where the starts and stops are. I mean, things move, they bend. Understanding where to sequence the welds.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that stuff is a skill that's developed from fabricating and welding things manually. And then a lot of the same, if you weld to welding procedures by hand, you can then convert those same exact welding procedures into the robot,
Right.
and it'll replicate.
It's within spec.
Yeah, it replicates your welds, except you're not the person that's moving at 18 inches a minute. It's Cooper.
Right.
Or
I think that's something that gets
Louis or
lost, and I know
whatever the Miller one
I've
is.
actually even told this story a couple times today. But like one of my favorite stories, and I hope it's true because it's too good not to be true. But when the Prius had the issue with the unintended acceleration, and they had major recalls, it was kind of a product of they became another one of these really big companies, as opposed to like a family company where their current, or at least at the time, their current president was a great-great-grandson of the original Toyota, and he took it as kind of a personal affront, like, why are we having issues with quality? And what he found was, as they switched to automation, the first generation of people, they had that hands-on experience. So as the automation happened, they could dictate, they could help smooth out the wrinkles. If there was an issue, they could be like, okay, we need this machine to do this and not that. Then when you got to the second generation, they were still pretty sharp because they were working hand in hand with those first generation people. By the time you got to the third generation, you just had people pushing buttons. And if something happened and there was a break in the system or there was a faulty part, they didn't know what to do. So what he did actually was he set up satellite factories around these big, large manufacturing facilities. And before people were allowed to go into these manufacturing facilities, they had to go in and graduate from these little satellite factories where they were literally building stuff by hand. Like they were building the parts by hand. They were forging stuff. They were welding stuff. They were, and then when they went back to the factory, they could help influence how maybe something needed to change. And I think that's a really critical part about all of this, is keeping the worker up on procedure, on how the proper way to do things. Like you still have to know all that stuff in order to operate one of these, basically.
Yeah, and if you're a skilled welder and you have a cobot, it's like
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, really. I mean, if you understand welding process, then now you're just another tool in your toolbox that you can now use to do crazy welding stuff. Like,
I can look at myself, like I've had 4 major arm surgeries. Like what happens if something happens and I just can't use my arms? I could still use my mind to program. Maybe I become part cobot, like a cyborg.
you could have both cobot, like 2 cobot arms.
I do have the
Josh
implant.
with 6-axis robot arms.
And you could just like pop one off and put a torque wrench on it or a torch on
yeah.
it. Like,
Sign me up for that.
exactly.
Man. That's cool.
But
What if he is the Terminator?
yeah,
this is
slowly
my eyes are
becoming.
glowing red. You can't see it,
Yeah,
but they are.
slowly becoming the cobot. In order to understand it, you have to become
You
the
have to
cobot.
become the cobot.
Yeah.
This is going in a very strange direction.
I think the big thing is like I talk about this a lot, is perspective, gaining perspective in the industry from traveling around to different places. We talked about this a little bit with Weld Labs before we came on the podcast.
Right.
Is just expanding your perspective on the industry. If you work in one shop or in one region of the United States or the world, and you just weld and build things that one way, and you've never gone to see a way that somebody else does it, it's not like your creative like juices aren't flowing. You don't have these epiphanies that you might have when you go into another shop and you're like, man, I've gone to 10 different trailer shops. You guys are doing, 20 a day, and every other one does 5. What are you doing differently? Show me how you're doing this differently. Like, well, we found out that we implemented this and it does that. And you're not like stealing trade secrets. As a welder, you're like gaining this perspective on, man, I could do this differently, or I could think about this differently.
So many shops become a prisoner to whatever era they were built in.
Oh,
so, like,
100%.
if you had a shop that was built in 1995 with all 1995 technology and nobody's ever gone outside that shop, they still think that that's the way to do it. They don't understand. Like, Nate is great with talking about, deposition rates and how, how to do more work in less time. And or even an instructor graduates in 2000, but he's only been in his lab for the last 22 years. doesn't understand what else is out there. And that's where, like, what Nate's doing with Weld Labs and going to different schools and even different factories, different places where he's like the fixer, like the industry fixer. Like, if something's going on, you call it, like, hey, what's the best way to do this? And oftentimes, whatever the way, like, you developed a process 20 years ago for welding a widget, and you still weld it the exact same way, when now you could pulse weld it, do a different, like, you're even getting into the hyperfill stuff and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of new technology that can help people out, and it's that, like, if you're not out constantly looking at that kind of stuff, and if you're keeping things like cobots like at arm's length, like, you keep it at arm's length for so long, other people are going to implement this technology, and
you're going to
eat
be
your
behind.
lunch,
Do you get a greater sense of professionalism entering the welding ranks, where maybe companies are realizing this and they need to get out more regularly, and B, maybe from an individual welder perspective, saying that, the way I'm going to advance my own career is I need to either make my mark here, and if they won't let me, I need to go find some place that they will let me.
Yeah, and that's something that I encourage a lot of people to do. A lot of people, I feel, in the welding industry don't have the confidence to leave their employer because they're treated unfairly, or they don't get paid the right. The right amount or the right wage. I mean, and unfortunately, it means you may have to pack up your family and move to a different state.
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth about the industry. But if you continue just saying, yeah, I'll take $15 an hour because I got 2 kids to feed or whatever, and I don't have a choice, those employers will take advantage of you continuously.
100%.
I'm not saying every employer is like that. I work for an absolutely amazing, super supportive company.
Yeah.
Look at my LinkedIn. I've worked at other places
Yeah.
for not even half as long as I've worked for Central Welding.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm treated the right way. I've been given a lot of respect and a lot of leeway to go gain this perspective, and it's only helped my job at Central.
Does a reputation get out like that for companies that do it right? I mean, do you hear?
Maybe
as you're
hope
coming
is,
up.
Lincoln was willing to give me a cobot because they know that I'm going to be out there using it and showing it and demonstrating it to customers. Like, they don't just give those away, and they're going to give Josh one because of what we just talked about. You got somebody who's arguably one of the most skilled hand welders on the planet, and now he's welding with a robot. Like, the industry is gonna like implode.
Well,
they're like, wait
the
a second,
Terminator.
but Josh, you could just weld it by hand, and you're like, or I could use the robot.
Yeah.
And that's the industry needs to see people at the top like us saying, hey, this is something that we need to start doing. Like, we can't just talk about this stuff and then not really play with robots or not really do these things.
All the technology is becoming so much more accessible, even in welding machines. Like, the Miller Aerowave 255, like, I can pulse weld in my garage with that. Now guys are pulse welding. They're starting their own fabrication businesses doing pulse welding. So much cleaner, so you don't have the spatter to clean up. But that was a technology that even 10 years ago wasn't really accessible for a person starting a shop in their garage. Or look at where 3D printing and additive manufacturing has come in the last 10 years.
God,
all these things combined are things that fabricators have to stay up on, because what was once kind of a pipe dream, like, well, I can't afford that. Now it's like, well, maybe if I make this investment in 3 years or 4 years, this is going to pay off. And you see, even with FABTECH, one of the things that I've tried to communicate with different companies is it's an industry thing. It's more of a commercial side of things. And they want to sell 100 machines at a time to larger factories. But what you have to get is, this day and age, so many people are starting their own businesses from the ground up, and you can do that because of social media, because of the internet, because you can ship things worldwide really easily. But you have to get your foot in the door with people at the ground level, because all of a sudden the guy that was buying a Dynasty 400 for his shop 5 years ago, now he's buying 10 of them, and he's getting into, he's got the laser cut table, and he's got the tubing laser cutter, and just all these things are now, like, we're starting our own businesses from the ground up. And I don't know where I was going with that, but
no, I think there's really, like, in terms of entrepreneurialism.
Yes,
that those folks, if you do work quality wise and get it delivered on time, you can grow with customers.
That's the thing. I've talked to a few people recently who have their own businesses and they're expanding, and it's like, my mind's just not there. Like, I don't have that great business mind.
Yeah.
But they're like, if the work's out there, you can get the work. If you do quality work and you get it done in time, like, it's there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is like there's a finite amount of welding work to be done out there, and people really don't care where it comes from. They're not going to be like, well, we got to get it from Mike's welding shop because Mike's welding's been in town for 36 years. But if there's Tim's welding shop down the street and he's got 6 advanced process machines versus an enormous welding shop and his lead time's 3 days and not 3 weeks because he's got a laser and he's got a CNC press brake and he's got advanced technology welding machines that, or cobots or whatever that weld these things out, and the quality's there, people don't care where it comes from. They just want their parts.
Yeah.
And so, and oftentimes now, because of the supply chain issues, people are willing to pay a premium to just get it done.
Yeah.
Well, we were discussing that earlier in terms of, material prices, 3-4 times what they were when the spike occurred last year, and everybody ate that cost. There's I didn't get letters from fabricators saying like, we can't do that, prices need to come down, I can't pass this along. It passed it along and people just kept ordering. So I think you're exactly right with that. Anything else you've seen here at the show that maybe caught your eyes?
Man, I don't know.
It is the first day. So.
It is the first day. Yeah, today. Yeah.
Well, we hung out earlier. Our friend Rush Kane has a signature machine with OTC.
Okay.
And he unveiled a new version, and then some of his PPE's been working on. So that was super cool. And it's really cool to see a company working hand in hand with a dude who's a superstar in the industry.
Right.
Like showing off him and letting him sell what they do and how much influence he's had on what they build too.
Yeah.
That was one thing I always love coming to the last couple of years, especially, is seeing Rush do his thing with OTC.
Yeah, and that's his second iteration of this machine, right? Because they unveiled it last year at FABTECH.
Yeah, so it's so he's got basically a new livery that's out for it. So it's same machine as before, but he's got a whole new vinyl package for the machine. It's like it's really rad. I like this one a lot.
And you said gloves too, right?
So he owns Kane Industries has welding PPE. Rush is also my partner in Weld Labs. So it's funny because his stuff's so good, and I'm like very picky with like what I wear as far as welding PPE, and I'm like, dude, you're making me look like such a fanboy because I have all your stuff, like gloves and the sleeves and the safety glasses and all, and it's like, but it's good. And the stuff's really good.
Him and they have that fashion background, like they know what they're doing, and
the designs are so clean. Like there's no corners cut. It's everything you need, nothing you don't.
Right.
But it's and it also has this more modern style. It's PPE that you want to wear.
Right.
Like it's like fashion.
I think we have a copywriter.
It's not something that
PPE.
old John Tillman would be wearing.
No.
Oh yeah.
So,
whatever happened to John Tillman?
He became a Halloween costume. He lives in infamy on Halloween.
Yeah. I can't believe that we didn't see more posts about John Tillman welder people for Halloween. It's a missed
big in the welding
research.
Community. Is that safe to say?
Missed opportunity, like that Spirit of Halloween meme. Like, it just needs to be. We need to make that.
Oh, totally.
We could get him on the pod.
Yeah.
What the guy from the Tillman gloves?
Yeah.
So here we go. Phone.
John Tillman.
Get people on the phone.
Is that who the guy was? It John Tillman that was
I have
on the
no
gloves?
idea. I'm sure that was a model.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Like, we need a man with a mustache.
What do you do? I model welding apparel.
Yeah.
Nice.
There could be a market for that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
There you go.
100%.
So anything that you would like to see, maybe explore further?
So this is something that I thought about recently. So we did talk a ton about new equipment and that kind of stuff. I have a soft spot for really old equipment.
Yeah.
In the past 3 weeks, I bought 2 welders that are older than the 1980s. So I have a 1978 TIG 300, the big gray refrigerator size TIG welder, AC/DC.
What year?
It's 1978.
Okay.
So I bought one of those, and then I bought a 1941 SAE 200.
Wow.
Like the torpedo, horizontal torpedo.
Those things
Okay.
stick weld like butter.
Yeah, they're they weigh 1,200 pounds, and I'm sure.
Is this the one up on the
that's
screen?
that one on the screen over there? Yeah.
Wow.
So I bought that from a company called HGR Industrial. I keep messing up their.
So this is totally ignorant to me.
Yeah.
Is that when they were calling it Heliarc?
Probably, yeah.
But that Heliarc was actually
I don't
a
even know if
company.
TIG welding was,
was okay.
Yeah,
invented
that
at that
was a
time in
brand.
1941. They were stick welding. So maybe they were TIG welding. I don't know.
I don't know.
Are those operational at all?
Yeah, it works. All my
does it?
welders work.
I
I was about to say,
all my old welders work. Yeah.
I did one of
And
my
if it's not, we're gonna make it work.
stick certifications at General Dynamics. I used a pipeliner. The
No
sweet
kidding.
machine.
Yeah.
We had a restored one at the community college we were at.
Yeah, you post all the vintage weld. Like what? This one that's on the screen. What is that
Yep,
one?
that's a link welder.
That's
That's a
awesome.
link welder 60 from I think 1932 or 1933.
Wow.
There's actually one of those. The first place I saw one of those was at Lincoln at their headquarters, and it's in a glass case. And once I found out what it was, I just started scouring the internet and happened to find one for $100.
Get out of here.
And I
In
bought
that
one.
condition?
Well, that was a lot of car wax, and my best friend's a detailer.
Okay.
So he's like really helped me out, like learning how to like this is all old single stage paint, so there's kind of a lot you can do with it.
wow.
Simple green and steam was like your
No
best
kidding.
friend. Simple green and steam.
Guess who I just talked to before coming over here? The guy who was the guy behind the Aerowave.
Oh my God,
He's
dude,
here
no
in the Miller
way.
booth.
So I have an Aerowave. That's another machine. I'm not just not just a Lincoln guy. I love Miller machines.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you notice, I have a Miller tattoo. So
Gotcha.
I like all machines. I have an Aerowave. That's a legendary thing. We're gonna have to go over there and talk to this
His
dude.
name's Mark. I forget his last name, but we talked to him for like 45 minutes. Super cool dude. And when he like knew that I knew about the machine, like
Oh my God.
you're gonna geek out with him.
Dude,
Super cool.
I want the Aerowave was designed.
What era?
It's what 80s, 90s,
Late,
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, it was designed in like
Late 80s, early 90s,
Yeah,
yeah.
tied in kind of in partnership with Boeing.
Okay.
It wasn't actually.
No?
No.
This is the story I've heard. Tell
it
me this.
is ish, but it's a little more complicated than that. Basically, it's something the whole aerospace industry wanted, and then Boeing was a company that they worked with a little bit going back and forth, but it wasn't like a collaboration like
Right,
that I originally had thought it was.
Right. I would love to go hear the story on that. But so, long story short, imagine a modern welder with all the adjustability for like your everything for TIG welding arc, for AC, DC,
Yeah.
pulses per second, frequency, balance, all that stuff, but all knobs and switches.
No kidding.
So the only digital display on it is like your amps and
And he
volts.
explained why he did that, because he didn't understand microprocessors at the time, so he did everything with switches, and so the board is like 3 feet long or something.
Oh yeah. So what's really cool about it is I've heard stories about people from Boeing. They develop a welding procedure, and they would take a Polaroid of the front of the machine, and that would be in the job order.
It literally looks like a cockpit. Like there are so many buttons and switches.
That's-
and,
oh, yeah.
And it's a hybrid. It's a transformer inverter hybrid. So it was this really cool like space and time in between when everything went from transformers to inverters. The inverter technology just wasn't quite robust enough at the time, so they used it basically just specifically for the AC, and the transformer did a lot of the grunt work. But then as inverters became more robust, they were able just to build, the dynasty basically is what
Right.
came out of that.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be something that I'd really like to see. You like to a very long story to answer your question.
Yeah.
I would love to see.
I'm impressed you remember the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where were we?
I'm trying here. But yeah, I would really love to see some old welding equipment, some of that heritage equipment that companies like Miller and Lincoln were built
Yeah.
on. I would love to see some of that stuff. I'm definitely in talks with Lincoln about bringing out some of my stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to let people weld on old technology and show them, just what it's like.
Yeah.
Or what it was like. And I think that would be pretty cool. I'm gonna when this comes out, we'll probably have announced. So Weld Labs, my company Weld Labs, we're going to start doing our own events every year. So
Oh, wow.
in 2024, we're going to have one in Houston.
Okay.
Event like dates and everything like that to be determined. But basically, we're thinking like Friday, Saturday. We're going to do like a different location around the country. We may do a couple events a year. We're going to do like a rig truck cruise on Friday night. So like bring your welding bring your welding truck out, and we'll do like car crews, but for welding rigs, and then maybe go weld in some parking lots or whatever.
I'm hoping to jump in and do some stuff with Weld Labs too. I really believe in what him and Rush are doing. I think it's a really cool. The potential is there. I mean, it's already really cool, but the potential is there to really reach a lot of people.
Weld Labs collabs. It's like rhymes, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, we want to support anybody. Like, we're not trying to compete with anybody. We're not trying to compete with any brands. We have great, support and sponsorship from Lincoln that's allowed us to do what we're doing. But, we're open to helping anybody that wants to go out and teach people about welding. Like, we want to share everything that we've learned by going out and doing these events so that more people can go out and do that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. You got a question, Garrett?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, is there like a certain vintage welding machine that you like have your eye on that you can't just track down?
Right now, man, I'd have to look at my phone. I have in my notes. So the first TIG welder that I got, or that I ever TIG welded on, was like a kind of a 90s Lincoln, had like a red backlit digital display, like big buttons, very, very 90s. I would like to get one of those. That industrial supply place that I bought the 1940s welder from, when I bought it, the marketing people were like, can you sit down and talk to us a little bit? And like, we didn't realize that you're, blah, blah, blah. And so we may end up doing some sort of collaboration where I have them source some equipment for me.
Really?
So we're going to be doing a vintage welding video here soon, at least one, where we get a bunch of people together and weld with some old machines and show people what it's like.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. I don't even...
This Old Welder, is that a hashtag?
This Old Welder.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Exactly. Yeah. Like, if I could have the theme from This Old House playing like with This Old Welder, oh, dude, that would be...
Right.
There
you go.
That's the vibe.
Stuff like Tom Villa and that Villa. And,
oh, God. Like flannel it up.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm down. Awesome. Thanks for getting that reference. I say that, and everybody, people are like,
I had a group of high school students in a class this summer, and I brought up a Tombstone reference, and they all just stared at me. And Darla looks at me, and she's like, Josh. I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm so old.
I'm like, it's no problem.
Zero reference.
It's a piece of cake.
It does happen.
Zero idea of where that came from.
So I noticed the Weld Life tattoos, too.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He got those in prison.
Yeah, I got those in prison, yeah. My best friend from high school is my tattoo artist, and I was in Cleveland for 2 weeks, 1 week to do World Skills. I was there at the event for World Skills.
Yeah.
And then the following week, I was there for cobot training. So on the weekend, rather than stay in Cleveland for the weekend, I drove up to central New York where I used to live. And it just seemed like a very fitting thing. When I hang out with my tattoo artist friend, I was like, hey, we should do some stuff. And I was like, I'm thinking about getting Weld Life tattooed on my hands. And he's like, we should do that. That's horrible. They're still healing up, but I'm very glad that I did it.
How painful is it on the fingers?
It's the worst tattoos I've ever gotten.
Oh, man.
It was like an hour. Yeah, no regrets.
No regrets.
At all. It was way worth it. Like,
that's the worst pain you've experienced getting a tattoo?
Yeah, it's real rough. Because, like, and especially if you have, like, hands that are a lot of scar tissue and stuff, like, even my tattoo artist, he was, like, cringing. He's like, dude, I'm, like, hammering this in there to get the ink to stick. And I'm like, I can tell. It's, like, sweating, straight sweating, so. But, yeah, they're in there, and now I'm really glad. The cool thing about, like, tattoos on your fingers is like you get to see them from different angles, which is something that's different about having I'm like covered in tattoos, but you don't get that movement. Like when you reach out, you like see them and you're like, all right, it was worth the pain.
It's like Memento come to life.
Right. Did you see the story about the dude who like changed his life around and wanted to grind off get his prison tattoos off?
I did.
So he literally took a hand grinder and ground them off his face.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, like the teardrop tattoos?
Wow. Yeah, like both sides. They showed before and after. Like literally took like a angle grinder and ground off the tattoos.
Wow.
Well,
there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, there are other ways.
There are other ways, but that's
suggest
one way to get rid of
that.
them.
That is one way, though.
Yeah, that is one
like
way.
concealer,
all the ways
you know?
to do it, that is a way.
Could have decapitated himself.
Yeah.
Jason Becker from Arc Junkies was like, dude, you spelled Weld Labs wrong. And I was like,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's fine.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah, no regrets.
What about the Miller tattoo?
Yeah, Lincoln loves the
Yeah, I was
Miller
gonna say.
tattoo. They really love that.
Are they asking for equal time somewhere on your body?
I'm gonna do. I will do a Lincoln one, but now that I do so much video stuff, I think it'd be funny to do it and put it in a video and get it done in
You
Cleveland.
need a giant back piece that's like the devil versus another devil, and it's like Miller versus
Like a blue
red
versus
demon
red.
versus
Yeah,
a
like
blue
We were
Crips and
talking
Bloods.
earlier that we need to get our cobots to like look like
Yes.
we're gonna like make them look like they're gonna battle, but then they're gonna sync up
It's
and
gonna be
start
the
welding.
sexiest dance off.
Oh yeah,
While
Isn't there some
welding.
kind of like law robotics
Nobody's
where you
gonna-
can't have them do that?
I'm sure that
This is where the end of the world.
this
begins.
is where this is. Yeah,
I
Miller
think they
and
remember
Lincoln.
stuff like that.
Miller
when
and
it
Lincoln
comes time
getting
for like
together.
This is the singularity.
sentience, they
Dogs
come
and
looking
cats
for
living
you.
together. This is mass hysteria.
This is singularity.
Yeah.
It's over.
I'm
Yeah.
running for the hills.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I love it because like who would share that on their marketing? Would Miller share it? Would Lincoln share it? They'd
Nobody.
be like, wait, we can't. I don't.
We would be in limbo or purgatory.
Yeah.
I guess would be the better.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
keep-
just turn your phone and just like you just like go to swipe up and unlock and it just doesn't unlock. It's just white screen and numbers.
Miller would not.
No.
They wouldn't be stoked with me
What
for
are you
that.
hanging out with that Lincoln guy? What are you hanging out with that Miller guy?
Maybe we can find 2 other cobots from some robotic companies. If you'd
Oh,
like
yeah.
your
It's like the equivalent of
cobot to
crossing the
battle another
streams.
cobot, please send them both Nate
Do you
and
think your
Josh's
cobot
way.
is worthy of battle?
Yeah.
I think we just branched out with a new idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
Well,
Yeah. So we'll just call it a wrap on that. I don't know how we top
I
that
don't know how we
discussion.
top that one. Yeah. No.
So
topping it.
thanks for joining us, Nate. Josh, thanks for joining us. Where can they
Absolutely.
find you on the interwebs?
At Weld Scientist and at Weld Labs.
Okay. Josh, you want to give a plug?
Sure. BrownDogWelding.com or Welder Assassin on Instagram or at thefabricator.com.
Never
That's
heard of
the
it.
Welder magazine.
Boy, he does this well.
It's an up and coming publication.
It's you might
Yeah.
not have heard of it, but I'm kind of a big deal. So.
I hear they got a podcast that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You know what? There's stickers as well.
Yeah.
Podcast coming soon.
Limited edition.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I'm taking one of those.
go to your favorite place where you download podcasts, subscribe, rate, review, and we'll check you later. Bye-bye now.